Elementalist doesn't have as many weapons as a lot of other classes, but today we'll take a look at every single weapon that Elementalist has and discuss what kind of playstyle it suits and how strong it is. Be sure to let me know your takes in the comments. This video is the first of a series that I want to do for every single class, so it's not only helping people getting into the class, but also to make people aware of how to craft their own builds. Because on my channel I have a lot of build guides, that's good for people that want to see a fully built character, but if you want to have your own experience in crafting builds, so that video here should help you a lot on how to understand what the strength of the particular weapons for the Elementalist in this case are. So let's jump straight in and look at Staff. So Staff, in my opinion, is a very nice 1200 ranged weapon that can be very useful in World vs. World as a nice cleave option with Meteor Shower and Fire in general. But other than that, it is very lackluster. It's not a very good condition weapon. It doesn't have a lot of condition on it, only in Earth and Fire a little bit, but it's more like a power weapon. But even in World vs. World, only Fire is really used for dealing damage. So you can use it as a Catalyst or a Weaver as a offensive DPS. But other than that, I would say Staff is more like designed in a way that it is a support weapon. You have a nice retreat here, you have a lot of healing fields that can help a lot, especially with Caracosa Relic. They are really strong in PvE as a healer. Be sure to check out my Catalyst 10 boon healer, it's really strong. And then you have of course some nice CC that can be really helpful in World vs. World and PvP as well. That's why I would say Staff is more a support weapon. Typically you play it as a support in PvP, even in World vs. World with a Tempest, but in PvE for sure it's a support weapon. Nice super speed, and in Earth again get some nice reflect, and if you transmute it you get some nice stability. Also very strong. So Staff in my opinion is more like CC, area denial, healing. That's what Staff is about. Also on Weaver you get some very aggressive skills for the most part, so that's why I would say Weaver and Catalyst in World vs. World can make use out of Staff as a DPS, but in all other game modes Staff is a support weapon. So Spear is, let's say, just like Staff and on a 1200 range weapon scale, but it is more aggressive and it's more focused on projectiles, and therefore it's a little bit harder to use in World vs. World because there's so many reflects. In PvP, however, it can be used as a bruiser because you have some nice stability in there, some evades, some healing, some water fields. That's a little bit better to use as a bruiser weapon than a full glass cannon. So that's why it's actually viable there. You can also use it, of course, as a roamer. Other than that, I would say it's mainly used on a Catalyst. And I would say on Weaver, you have some decent abilities as well, but they are not that great. So I think Spear is better on Catalyst. In PvE, Spear is a very strong DPS option. Other than that, I would say it's not really focused for conditions. It's mostly focused on power. That's also true for all the competitive modes. There is not a lot of condition application in the Fire or even Earth. So that's why not a good condi weapon. It's mainly for power. And it also scales very well with power. Quickly take a look at Trident just for the memes. So underwater, you have a lot of burning application as well. You have some nice mobility. It's the only weapon that you have in underwater combat for Elementalists, so there's not a lot of choice here, but I would say it's actually a very strong weapon. Has a lot of mobility and CC. It feels like a Staff, I would say, underwater, just with more damage. So very good weapon. Even the Weaver skills are actually very decent. Let's take a look at Hammer. So Hammer has the special thing that all the 3 skills give you some orb that surrounds you and gives you some passive damage buff. For example, Fire gives you damage, Water gives you minus incoming condition damage, Air gives you 15% crit rate, and then Earth gives you -% incoming damage. So it's a really nice bruiser weapon. It gives you a lot of stats. So that's why it's very useful in roaming or in PvP as a side note. In Zerg play, I wouldn't say it's not that good. And it also can be played as a power or condi variant actually, because you have a lot of condis baked into the kit as well. It's mostly used as a power weapon. In PvE, you can use it as a power or celestial variant in open world. It's very good there. In instant content, I would say it's not that strong. In PvP, you actually can also use it as a condi weapon on a Weaver, because you actually get access to those interesting dual orbit skills, which are very strong because they also apply a lot of conditions passively and gives you some nice buffs. So this is why there is a really nasty and really annoying build to fight, which would be a really tanky condi Weaver. That can be very useful. So Hammer is the first weapon that is actually useful for a lot of different scenarios. As a power weapon, as a bruiser weapon, as a condi weapon, there are a lot of ways to use it. It's not a support weapon, but it is more like a bruisery DPS playstyle. Okay, so that's it for the two-handed weapons. Let's now get to the main hand weapons. Let's start with sword. It's a very strong main hand weapon that has very high damage while still having some evasion, water and earth. So it's a very nice bruiser weapon again, but typically it's in PvE used as a very strong aggressive weapon, even on a condi or power build. That's the first weapon that is very, very strongly designed as a hybrid weapon. So you can use it in both ways, or in a celestial ways, it's very strong. You have some nice mobility, and Weaver gets very, very strong skills here as well, because that's the weapon that was designed with Weaver together. So it's very useful in all game modes as a duelist, but typically Hammer does exactly the same job. And nowadays Sword is a little bit weaker in the competitive modes, but in PvE it's a very strong DPS or bruisery option. It has no support elements baked into the kit other than the water fields, so I would say this is more like the bruiser and selfish weapon. Dagger is more focused on providing utility with shocking aura, with blast finisher, with healing, and with some nice emobs, and blocks missiles even. So I think Dagger can be used in a lot of ways. You can use it as a support in the competitive modes. It's really strong. You can also use it as a support weapon in PvE. The reason for that is that the main hand is actually not really supportive in general on Elementalists. So the offhand really defines you as a support. That means Dagger main hand is nice because of the shocking aura and the frozen burst. Other than that, Dagger is not that crazy and no support. But you can also use it as an aggressive Dagger build, or even Dagger focus build in PvP. It's very strong as an aggressive build as well if you want to go melee, because burning speed, because of shocking aura, there are a lot of good skills on Dagger. Even the Weaver skills are actually very decent. You can play it on a lightning rod build because you have so many CCs on there. So this is a very strong option if you want to go for a power based build. You can also play Dagger as some kind of condi build, but I would say it's mostly shining in some kind of hybrid scenarios, because you can also deal nice power amount of damage. That's why the Sage Tempest, for example, works very well, because it scales very well with power and condition damage. Then we have Pistol. Pistol was added with Soto, and in my opinion is by far the worst option for Elementalist. It has some weird gimmick with the bullets, so whenever you use a fire skill, the next one will be empowered. It's a little bit weird, and it's also not very strong. It doesn't fill a very nice niche. It has 900 range, and is just not as strong as, for example, the Scepter, which we'll get to in a second. And it does damage. It has some condis baked into the kit, so it's more like a condi weapon to some extent, but also does some power damage, but not enough to make it really worth it. And even the condi damage is not that good. So I would say you can play it in PvE as a condi weapon, but in all the competitive modes it's really shit. And even in PvE, it's not that good. So I think this is a very weird and very bad weapon in that sense. And also the Weaver skills are not that crazy good. And it's just the gimmick makes it very hard to use, because you only get the really strong skills if you use the other skill before. And that's obviously not something that you want. Oftentimes you want to use your strong skills all the time. So that's why Pistol, in my opinion, is very bad. Let's now talk about Scepter, which is the same as Pistol, 900 range, but does the job of being a hybrid weapon way better, because you have a nice power burst with Phoenix and Dragon's Tooth, while still having amazing condi implication with the Flame Strike, for example, or the Dragon's Tooth too, which is really, really good. So you have a nice hybrid mix. You can play it as a full power option, a full condi option, as a hybrid option. It's a very nice weapon used in every single game mode. You can use it for roaming, for PvP, for PvE, as a solo build, for PvE, Fresh Air, Tempest, for example, used it. It's really, really good. And even the Weaver skills are actually very decent. You can use a PvP Fresh Air Weaver, which is really, really strong as well, as a burster. So there are very many options, and that showcases why Scepter is so much better than Pistol, because you have so many options on it. It does its jobs very, very well. Let's now talk about the offhand weapons. So first start with Dagger offhand. Dagger offhand gives you some nice damage. It's a very aggressive offhand that also provides a nice mobility. So I would say this is the option that you would choose if you want to go aggressive in PvE. As a power option, I would say it's not a very good condi option. It has two skills that apply condis, so not that crazy good, but it can be used in some kind of hybrid, Celestial, for example, Dagger build in PvE, World vs. World, and PvP. So it's very strong there as a Dagger build. You have more mobility than Focus, for example, but you have less defense. So if you can play with that, it's a very strong weapon. Let's now talk about focus, because that's the more defensive option. You lose mobility, but you get more defensive with Obsidian Flash, with Condi Glance and Reflex, and some more CC and projectile denial. So this is the supportive or defensive option. You can either use it as a very defensive, selfish option, or in PvP and World vs. World as a very nice supportive way and very defensive option too. I would say in PvE I would not use it for the most part. I would rather use Warhorn, because Warhorn gives you way more support capabilities. In PvE you don't want to play defensive without supporting your allies, and Warhorn gives you way more supportive capabilities. So Warhorn, in my opinion, and even Focus are not really having any power or Condi favored things in there, so you can just use it on every build, but Warhorn is more supportive while Focus is more defensive. So you get some nice buffs here. You can even use it as a Condi or power weapon if you want, because the Wildfire actually does some nice damage too, and the Lightning Orb too, but they nerfed it, so it's more of a support weapon. A lot of water and healing, and of course some nice CC as well. So Warhorn is very helpful as a support weapon. And with that, we're actually through with all the weapons. Let me know if you have any really important takes that I missed here. But in my opinion, Elementalist has a very nice spread of weapons that you can use in a lot of ways, because Elementalist has so many different skills on the weapons that I think all of the weapons are actually viable, with the exception of Pistol. I think Pistol is very bad and should be looked at. But other than that, I think all the weapons have a very nice playstyle. Maybe Staff and Spear should be a little bit more fleshed out what they are supposed to do. But other than that, I think they are really nice, and you have a lot of options to build craft with them. So, like I said, let me know your take in the comments. Thanks a lot for watching. I hope you found this video helpful. If you did, be sure to leave a like and subscribe for more content like this. Thanks to all my supporters on Patreon, YouTube and Twitch. Thanks Lane, thanks Malice, and I hope to see you all in the next video.